While you were sleeping last night, the wealthy were already preparing to get further ahead of you. Not because they have more hours in the day, not because they have more talent, not because life handed them something it didn't hand you, but because of what they do every single morning before most people even open their eyes. And here is what makes this uncomfortable. None of it is what you think it is. Every single morning, two very different stories begin playing out across this world simultaneously. In the first story, the alarm goes off at 7 a.m. It gets snoozed, then snoozed again. The scramble starts. Rush to get dressed, skip breakfast, grab the phone before even getting out of bed. Within 3 minutes of waking up, the mind is already drowning in notifications, bad news, other people's opinions, and someone else's emergency. They leave the house already behind, already reactive, already in survival mode before the day has even started. They spend the entire day responding to other people's priorities. They come home drained, watch something mindless to decompress, and fall asleep, only to wake up and repeat the exact same cycle tomorrow. That is the morning of the average person, and it is costing them far more than they realize. In the second story, the wealthy person wakes up, sometimes before the alarm, not because they enjoy suffering, but because what they are building is more exciting to them than sleep. And what happens in the next 2 to 3 hours of that morning does not just determine their day. Compounded over months and years, it determines their entire financial destiny. Jim Rohn, a man who grew up in poverty and became one of the wealthiest and most influential people of his generation, said something I want you to hold on to for this entire video. He said, "Either you run the day or the day runs you." The wealthy have mastered the morning, because the morning is where you decide, before the world gets involved, which of those two realities you are living in. Today, I'm breaking down 7 things the wealthy do every single morning that most people have never heard of. Not the surface level stuff you have read in every blog post. The deep stuff, the real stuff, the habits that actually separate the people who build wealth from the people who simply dream about it. We are counting down from 7 to 1. And I promise you, number 1 is the one nobody talks about. Stay until the end. It will be worth it. Let's go. Habit 7. They make their most important decision before anyone else wakes up. At 5 a.m. this morning, a wealthy person somewhere in the world sat down in silence. No phone, no noise, no interruptions, and asked themselves one single question. What is the most important move I can make today that my future self will thank me for? At that same 5 a.m., the average person was asleep. And when they eventually woke up, their first decision of the day was what to have for breakfast. That difference, practiced every single morning without exception, compounds into entirely different lives. Now here is the science behind why this matters so deeply. And I need you to really hear this because most people have no idea this is happening to them every single day. Psychologists have identified a phenomenon called decision fatigue. Every single decision you make, from what to wear, to what to eat, to how to reply to a message, draws from the same finite pool of cognitive energy in your brain. And here is the brutal truth. That pool depletes as the day goes on, which means by the time you get to an important financial decision in the afternoon, a business call, an investment choice, a budget review, your brain is already running on low power. You are making your most consequential decisions with your least capable mind. The wealthy understood this, many of them intuitively, long before the research confirmed it. Ray Dalio, the man who built Bridgewater Associates into the world's largest hedge fund managing over $150 billion, begins every morning by identifying what he calls his single most critical decision of the day. Not a to-do list of 40 items, not a packed calendar of back-to-back meetings. One decision, the most important one, made first, while his mind is at its sharpest, clearest, and most unclouded by the noise of the world. Barack Obama, during his time as president, famously wore only gray or blue suits every day. Not because he lacked fashion sense, but because he understood that every trivial decision he made, including what to wear, was quietly draining the mental energy he needed for the decisions that actually mattered. He refused to waste his best thinking on irrelevant choices. Naval Ravikant speaks about this in terms of mental leverage. He says the quality of your most important decisions determines the trajectory of your wealth, and the quality of those decisions is directly tied to the mental state you are in when you make them. Most people make their biggest decisions exhausted, distracted, and emotionally influenced by whatever happened earlier that day. The wealthy make their biggest decisions first, before exhaustion, before distraction, before the world has had the chance to influence their thinking. So starting tomorrow morning, before you check a single notification, before you respond to a single message, before you react to anything the world throws at you, sit in silence, even for just 10 minutes, and ask yourself, what is the one most important decision I need to make today? Write it down, think through it clearly, and make it with your sharpest mind before the day steals that mind from you. That single practice alone will separate you from the vast majority of people who are making life-altering decisions on an empty cognitive tank. Habit 6. They feed their mind before they feed their body. I want you to think about something for a moment. Most people would never skip eating for an entire day. The discomfort would be unbearable. The hunger would demand attention. The body would refuse to be ignored. And yet, those same people go days, weeks, months, sometimes years, without feeding their mind a single nutritious thought. And they wonder why their financial life feels starved. Jim Rohn said it in a way that permanently changed how I think about mornings. He said, "Miss a meal if you have to, but don't miss a book." He was not speaking casually. He was speaking from the experience of a man who transformed his life from broke farm worker to millionaire, almost entirely through the habit of consuming the right knowledge every single morning. Rohn understood something that the wealthy have always known. Your mind is your greatest income-producing asset. Not your hands, not your time, not your connections, your mind. And whatever you pour into that mind first in the morning sets the operating system that runs every decision, every action, and every response you have for the rest of the day. Think about it in terms of software. If the first input your mind receives every morning is anxiety-inducing news, your brain runs on a scarcity and threat operating system all day. If the first input is social media, comparison, distraction, other people's highlight reels, your brain runs on inadequacy and reactive thinking all day. But if the first input is wisdom, a book on wealth philosophy, a biography of someone who built what you want to build, an essay on strategy or mindset, your brain runs on possibility, ambition, and clarity all day. Warren Buffett reads for 5 to 6 hours every single day. He has maintained this habit for decades. When asked about his success, he pointed to his head and said, "Read 500 pages every week." That is how knowledge works. It builds up like compound interest. Charlie Munger echoes this with equal force. He has called himself a book with legs, a man who walks around with more knowledge stored in his mind than most people will consume in a lifetime. And Munger credits this morning reading habit as the foundation of his entire approach to wealth. He says, "In my whole life, I have known no wise people who didn't read all the time. None. Zero. Now here is what is important to understand. This is not about being a scholar. This is not about academic achievement. This is about deliberately choosing whose thinking enters your mind every morning before the world gets a turn. Because the world will get its turn. It always does. But the wealthy make sure that by the time the world arrives, their mind is already fortified, already clear, already operating from a foundation of wisdom, strategy, and possibility. Starting tomorrow, before you touch your phone, read 10 pages of a book that builds your financial mind. Just 10 pages. That is 3,650 pages a year. 12 to 15 books in 5 years. While the average person has consumed thousands of hours of content they cannot remember, you will have absorbed the thinking of 70 of the greatest minds who ever studied wealth. And that knowledge, compounding silently, will begin to show up in your decisions, your habits, your conversations, and eventually your bank account. Habit 5. They have a conversation nobody else can hear. Every morning, the wealthy have a conversation. Not with their partner, not with their assistant, not on a call, with themselves. And before you dismiss this, hear me out, because what I'm about to tell you is backed by decades of neuroscience and practiced by virtually every elite performer in history. Most people have self-talk. We all do. But most people's self-talk is passive, unconscious, and deeply damaging. It sounds like this: I am so bad with money. I could never do something like that. Rich people are just lucky. I'm not smart enough for this. These thoughts run in the background, like a program nobody installed intentionally, repeating themselves hundreds of times a day. And here is what makes this so devastating. Your brain believes what you repeatedly tell it, not metaphorically, literally. Neuroscientists have confirmed through decades of research that the neural pathways in your brain, the actual physical structures that determine how you think, what you notice, and how you behave, are shaped and reshaped by the language you use with yourself repeatedly. This is called neuroplasticity, and it means your brain is not fixed. It is being rewritten every single day, either intentionally by you or accidentally by the unconscious narrative running in the background. Jim Rohn called this working on your philosophy. He said the most important and most overlooked conversation a person can have is the one they have with themselves every single morning. And the wealthy have taken this seriously. They wake up every morning and they deliberately, consciously, intentionally speak to themselves about who they are and who they are becoming. Not affirmations in the shallow, empty, paste a quote on Instagram sense, but deep, specific, identity-level declarations. I am someone who manages money with discipline and intention. I see opportunities in situations where others see problems. I'm building something that will outlast me. My financial decisions today are investments in my future freedom. Elon Musk has spoken in various interviews about the way he frames his own identity internally, not as someone hoping to succeed, but as someone for whom success is the only logical outcome given his commitment. Muhammad Ali did not just train his body every morning. He trained his belief with a ferocity that intimidated opponents before they ever entered the ring. He did not say, "I hope I win." He declared, "I am the greatest," not because it was already fully true, but because repeated with enough conviction, the brain begins to align every behavior, every decision, every action with that declared identity. The financial version of this is just as powerful. Tomorrow morning, before anything else, write down 3 statements about who you are financially becoming. Not who you wish you were, who you are becoming. Say them out loud, with your full voice, with genuine conviction. Do it for 30 days straight and pay attention to how your decisions, quietly, almost invisibly, begin to shift. Habit 4. They reconnect with their vision before the world disconnects them from it. Here's a question I want you to sit with for a moment. Do you know, right now, with complete clarity, exactly how much money you want to have in 5 years? Exactly what you are building and why? Exactly what your financial life looks like when you have achieved what you are working toward? If you hesitated, if the answer is somewhere between vague and uncertain, then you have just identified one of the most significant reasons your wealth is not growing the way you want it to. Because here is what the wealthy understand that most people do not. You cannot build what you cannot clearly see. And more importantly, even when you do have a clear vision, the world will work against it every single day. Every distraction, every emergency, every bill, every setback, every conversation that pulls you back into survival thinking. All of it, quietly, disconnects you from your vision. And the moment you lose connection with your vision, you begin making decisions that are misaligned with your destination. You spend where you should save. You react where you should lead. You settle where you should push. Warren Buffett has spoken many times about what he calls the importance of knowing your why before you begin each day. He says that people who do not have a clear financial vision make reactive decisions, and reactive decisions almost never build wealth. This is why the wealthy, every single morning, without exception, reconnect with their vision before the day has the chance to pull them away from it. Some keep a vision journal, and every morning they open it, read it, and feel the reality of what they are building as if it already exists. Some keep a vision board, physical images of a life, the freedom, the impact they are working toward, and they sit with it in silence every morning before the day begins. Some write it out by hand every single morning, rewriting their goals, their vision, their financial targets, because the act of writing by hand forces the mind into a deeper level of engagement than simply reading. Ray Dalio keeps what he calls his principles, a living document of his deepest beliefs, goals, and strategies that he revisits constantly. He says, clarity of purpose, reviewed consistently, is the difference between a life that drifts and a life that builds. And here is the science behind why this practice works beyond just motivation. Your brain has a system called the reticular activating system. It is essentially a filter deciding what your conscious mind notices and what it ignores. And here is the key: you can program it. When you review your financial vision every morning, you are giving your reticular activating system instructions. You are telling your brain, this is what matters. Look for this. Alert me to this. And your brain, obediently, begins scanning your environment all day for opportunities, connections, conversations, and ideas that align with that vision. The wealthy person and the poor person walk through the same world. Same city, same economy, same people, same opportunities floating in the air around them. But one person's brain has been given instructions every morning about what to look for. The other person's brain is just reacting to whatever appears loudest. 5 minutes every morning. Read your financial vision. Feel it, believe it, reconnect with it, and then walk into your day as someone who knows exactly where they're going. Habit 3. They move their body to activate their wealth mind. Richard Branson, a man who has built over 400 companies and accumulated a net worth exceeding $5 billion, was once asked the single most important habit behind his business success. Not his networking strategy, not his investment philosophy, not his hiring approach. He said, without hesitation, exercise. Every single morning. And his reason was not aesthetic. He said working out adds 4 hours of productive energy to his day. 4 hours. That is 1,460 additional productive hours per year, simply from the habit of moving his body before the day begins. Now think about what you could build with 1,460 extra high-quality, high-energy, high-focus hours every year. But here is what most people misunderstand about wealthy people and morning exercise. It is not primarily about fitness. It is about cognitive performance. When you move your body, even moderately, in the morning, blood flow to the prefrontal cortex of your brain increases dramatically. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, impulse control, strategic decision-making, emotional regulation. In other words, it is the exact part of your brain you need to build wealth. And morning exercise activates it, sharpens it, and keeps it performing at peak capacity for the 4 to 6 hours that follow. Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, wakes at 3:45 a.m. partly to exercise before his day begins. He is not doing this because he enjoys 3:45 a.m. He is doing it because he understands that the person who shows up to his first meeting at 8 a.m. is a fundamentally sharper, more disciplined, more capable decision maker because of what he did before that meeting. But beyond the neuroscience, there is something even deeper happening. Rohn taught that discipline does not live in compartments. When you develop the habit of showing up for your body every single morning, especially when you do not feel like it, you're training the same character trait that wealth requires. The trait of doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Because wealth is not built on motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Wealth is built on discipline. The quiet, unglamorous, daily commitment to showing up, whether inspired or not. And every morning you lace up your shoes and move your body when every part of you wants to stay in bed. You are casting a vote for the disciplined, wealthy version of yourself. You do not need a gym. You do not need equipment. 20 minutes of intentional movement. A walk, a run, stretching, bodyweight exercises. Move your body before the day begins. And watch your financial decisions begin to reflect someone who has already conquered something hard before most people have even woken up. Habit 2. They protect the first hour of their day like it is worth $1 million. There's something happening to your brain in the first hour after you wake up that almost nobody talks about, and that the wealthy have been taking advantage of, consciously or not, for generations. When you wake up from sleep, your brain transitions through different wave states. For the first 20 to 30 minutes after waking, your brain is operating in what scientists call the theta wave state, the same deeply creative, deeply receptive state associated with meditation, deep relaxation, and the edge of sleep. In this state, your subconscious mind is more open, more malleable, more impressionable than at any other point in your waking day. Which means whatever enters your mind during this window does not just pass through. It goes deep, it plants, and it influences your thinking, your mood, your decisions, and your perception of what is possible for the rest of the day. Napoleon Hill, who spent 20 years studying the habits of the wealthiest people in America, wrote extensively in Think and Grow Rich about this golden window. He described the early morning hours as the most powerful time to plant the seeds of intention, vision, and belief directly into the fertile soil of the subconscious mind. He was not speaking mystically. He was observing a pattern in hundreds of wealthy people who all, in different ways, protected and used this morning window deliberately. Now, think about what most people are pouring into this window. They pick up their phone within the first 3 minutes of waking. Social media, news, notifications, arguments in comment sections. They are taking the most open, most receptive, most impressionable state of their mind and filling it with anxiety, comparison, distraction, and noise. And then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed, scattered, and behind before the day has even properly started. Naval Ravikant protects his mornings with an almost fierce intentionality. No meetings before noon. No reactive communication in the early hours. He has said, "The most value I can create is in the mornings, in silence, when my thinking is clearest." Oprah Winfrey has spoken about her morning practice of silence, gratitude, and intention, calling it non-negotiable and the foundation of everything she has built. The wealthy have collectively discovered, through experience, through intuition, through necessity, that the first hour of the day is the most valuable real estate in their entire 24 hours. And they do not give it away for free. They invest it in themselves, in their thinking, in their vision, in their peace. Starting tomorrow, make one non-negotiable rule. The first 60 minutes of your day belong to you and only you. No phone, no social media, no news, no notifications. Just you, your mind, your vision, your morning practice. Guard this hour like the asset it is, because every morning you give it away, you're handing someone else the keys to your day. And every morning you protect it, you are making a compounding investment in the version of yourself that wealth gravitates toward. Habit 1. They make peace with money every single morning. The habit nobody talks about. The one that sits beneath every other habit on this list. The one that, if you never develop it, will quietly undermine everything else you try to do. Every single morning, the wealthy make peace with money. Let me tell you what that actually means. Most people are carrying a war inside them about money. A deep, unconscious, inherited conflict that they have never examined and never resolved. They want money desperately, but somewhere deep inside, they believe wanting it is greedy. They chase it, but feel guilty when it comes. They pray for abundance, but talk about wealthy people with quiet contempt. They say money is not important, while suffering daily from the consequences of not having enough. This contradiction, this internal civil war between wanting wealth and believing it is somehow wrong, is the single most invisible and most destructive force in most people's financial lives. Because you cannot build a consistent, lasting relationship with something you are fundamentally at war with inside. Jim Rohn spent 4 decades teaching that your philosophy about money, your deepest, most unconscious beliefs and feelings about wealth, will determine your financial outcomes more than any strategy, skill, or circumstance ever will. He said, "It is not the amount of money that counts. It is the philosophy." Warren Buffett's relationship with money is, by his own description, almost neutral. Money to him is not a measure of worth, not a symbol of status, not a source of identity. It is simply a tool, a resource, a vehicle for creating value and solving problems at scale. And that calm, clear, purposeful relationship with money is what allows it to flow freely into his life and stay. Because money, like every resource, moves toward ease and away from tension. When you carry fear around money, it feels that fear and retreats. When you carry guilt around money, it feels that guilt and becomes unstable. When you carry resentment toward people who have money, you're unconsciously rejecting the very thing you claim to want. But when you approach money every morning with peace, with clarity, with purpose, you become the kind of person money is comfortable staying with. Every morning, the wealthy reset this relationship deliberately. Some do it through journaling, writing about money not with anxiety, but with gratitude, with respect, with intention, treating every dollar they have, no matter how few, as a seed worthy of care. Some do it through meditation, sitting in stillness and cultivating a genuine sense of abundance before abundance has fully arrived, training the feeling of wealth before the reality catches up. Some do it through quiet reflection, reviewing what they're building, why they're building it, and what it means not just for themselves, but for the people they love and the impact they want to have. But in every case, the intention is the same: to begin the day as someone who is at peace with wealth, who welcomes it without shame, who builds it without guilt, who keeps it without fear, and who understands deeply that wanting financial freedom is not greed. It is the most responsible, most loving, most powerful decision a person can make for themselves and for everyone who depends on them. That, more than any wake-up time, any cold shower, any productivity hack, is the true foundation of the wealthy morning. They do not just optimize their hours. They heal their relationship with the very thing they are building every single day. I want to ask you something before you close this video, and I need you to answer it honestly. Not to me, but to yourself. Of the 7 habits I just shared with you, how many of them are currently part of your morning? Be honest, because here is the truth that I think you already feel. The difference between where you are right now and where you want to be financially is not a gap of luck. It is not a gap of talent. It is not a gap of opportunity. It is a gap of morning. It is what happens or does not happen in those first 2 hours before the world gets involved. And the beautiful, almost unfair truth is this: every single habit I shared with you today costs nothing. Not $1, not one connection you do not already have, not one opportunity you have not been given. Just time, just intention, just the willingness to begin. Jim Rohn said, "You don't have to change that much for it to make a great deal of difference." A few simple disciplines practiced every day and you're on your way. A few simple disciplines every morning, starting tomorrow. That is all that separates the life you have right now from the life you know you are capable of living. So here's what I want you to do right now before you close this video. Pick one habit from this list. Just one. The one that hit you hardest. The one you know you need most. Write it down right now, on your phone, in a notebook, on a piece of paper. And tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, do that one thing. Not 7 things. Not a complete overhaul. One thing. Tomorrow morning. Because wealth is not built in grand gestures. It is built in quiet, consistent, daily decisions that the world never sees. Until one day, the results become impossible to ignore. And if this video gave you something real today, do one more thing for me. Share it with one person in your life right now. Not because I need the views, but because somewhere in your circle, there is someone who is working hard, staying stuck, and wondering what they are missing. And you might be the person who puts this in front of them today. That is how this knowledge spreads. Not from algorithm to algorithm, but from person to person, from hand to hand, from someone who found something real to someone who needed it. Subscribe for Wealth Principles every single week. I will be here every week with the kind of content that actually changes how you think about money. I will see you in the next one. On your morning, on your mind, on your future.